like Donna with a J. My mom ran out of names by the time she got to me. Just kidding. Actually, she named me after her brother, John, who killed himself shortly before I was born. Great way to start off a comedy routine, I know. But my grandmother told me that my mom was gonna name me Cookie. Imagine what professions I could have had. I could have been a Keebler elf and worked for Toll House, or I could have been a stripper. Nobody wants to see this naked. Nobody. But anyway, I have 3 kids myself, all with normal names, all names you can pronounce without needing a speech therapy degree. My oldest is Wyatt, he's 18. My middle one is Amelia, she's 14, and Maggie is almost 10. And Maggie has had some really interesting kids in her class throughout the years. Last year she had a kid with the name Blaze, and Blaze acted exactly how you would think a kid named Blaze would act. One day she came home and told me what he'd done, and I said, What did Blaze's parents do? And she said, I don't know, but I do know that his mom is in jail. And I was like, go figure. I have a theory, though. Hear me out. I think Blaze's dad was either a firefighter or his mom was a pot-smoking serial arsonist. They do say opposites attract. This year she has a kid in her class named Cayenne, and Cayenne apparently can be extremely rude. She came home and she said, I really don't like Cayenne. And I said, like the pepper? And she said, no, Mom, like the person. I was like, okay. And our neighbor has a kid named Coy. Kids were playing, they moved in, came inside, Mom, we got new neighbors. Their son's name is Coy. I said, like the verb or the adverb? And blank stares. I said, like the fish or don't be coy with me? And Amelia says, no, Mom, like the fish. His room is painted with koi fish on it. I'm like, okay. See, all right, sure. Let's name our kid after a fish. But kids are pretty funny. My kids are hilarious and don't even try to be. My 14-year-old one day asked me why we have so many Jewish women in Anderson. Full disclosure, the one thing we do not have a lot of in Anderson are Jewish women. We got a lot of banks, loads of grocery stores, a lot of homeless, fair amount of meth addicts, not a lot of Jewish women. I said, Amelia, how do you know that they're Jews? Like when you look at them, how do you know they're Jewish women? And she said, because they wear those little hat things on the back of their heads. I said, you mean yarmulkes? And she was like, is that what it's called? And I was like, yeah, it's called a yarmulke. But only the men wear those, not the women. It's just how they, show their respect to God. And she goes, well, I see the women in the Walmart market wear them all the time. And I was like, women. You mean Mennonites? Those are Mennonites. And she was like, is that what they're called? I was like, yes. Mennonites, not Jews. Definitely not Jews. They actually believe in Christ. Anyway, we were at the Walmart market a couple of weeks later, and sure enough, there was a group of ladies. You know what I'm talking about. Blue jean skirts, hair down to their butt, haven't cut it since 1962, look like they can churn some mean butter. And Amelia goes, look, Mom, look. It's the mineral lights. Yeah, when they do stuff like that, I don't take credit for it. I blame it on my husband's side. Yeah, my husband once was watching a movie in the kitchen, and he said, hey, baby, how far away do you think it is to get there? I said, to get to where from where? He said, from Great Britain to Australia. You think it's about 2 hours? At first, I thought he was joking, so I laughed. Realizing his error, he goes, oh, do you think it's more like 3 hours? I went into our homeschool area, grabbed the globe, I showed him the continent of Europe, where Great Britain was, and I said, Eric, this is Great Britain, this is the continent of Africa, this is Australia. Something tells me it's probably going to take more than 2 hours to get from here all the way to here. What do I know? Another good one, we were on a road trip, and we were talking about history, Civil War, men love wars, and he said, I wonder how big Atlanta would be if Frederick Douglass hadn't burnt it down. And I said, you mean General Sherman? And he said, no, Frederick Douglass. And I said, Eric, Frederick Douglass was a black abolitionist. General Sherman, white guy. His response was, well, maybe they looked alike, and that's why I'm confusing the two. I said, Frederick Douglass. All right, I'm going to give you guys a chance. Get your phones out. Google it. You might remember. Go ahead, Google it. Frederick Douglass. I'll give you a second. You're looking at him? Looks like he could be Don King's great-grandpa. All right, now I want you to Google General Sherman. I'll wait. Google it. He looks like he was Beavis and Butthead's great-grandpa. I was like, how do you confuse these two men together? That's Eric. I think my favorite Ericism of all times is when he said, baby, you know that big statue of Christ with his arms out like this? And I said, you mean Christ the Redeemer? And he goes, yeah. I was like, it's in Brazil. And he goes, is that where it is? I was like, that's where it is. It's in Brazil. And he's like, how did they know what Jesus looked like? Did they have like a picture of him? I said, Eric, they didn't have cameras back then. He said, well, then how did they know how to make his face? And I said, well, I guess they just used other portraits to liken it. He goes, so it's in Brazil? And I was like, yes, that's in South America. The next question that came out of his mouth was, did they put it there because Jesus visited there? I'm sorry? You think that Jesus visited South America? Please explain to me how the hell he got from the Middle East all the way to South America. Eric said, on a boat? What did he do? Did he go back to the future with Christopher Columbus? Bet you guys didn't hear that one in history class, did you? You forgot it. In 1492, Christ and Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Yes, I don't take credit for anything dumb my kids do. I cannot believe that I procreated with that. I brought life into this world on that line of genetics. It was a solid choice. I think another family story that I love, also blame on my husband's side, was when my son was about 5 years old. He came into the kitchen. And you have to remember, if he was 5, I was probably about 26 at the time. And he said, Mom, what would happen? What would happen if I got toothpaste up my butthole? I said, well, your legs would fall off. Immediate screaming. I don't want my legs to fall off. I need my legs. It was at that time I realized that he had indeed put toothpaste up his butthole. And I said, buddy, why would you do that? Why would you put toothpaste up your butthole? And he said, well, it gets my teeth clean. And you told me to scrub my whole body. I thought it would get my butthole clean. I cannot argue with that reasoning. He's still screaming, I need my legs. I don't want to not have legs. I said, there's cure. You got to bend over like this and just shake your butt, just like that, for just a couple of minutes. And it'll wiggle the toothpaste out and you'll keep your legs. Just had a full-on twerk session in the kitchen for a good 10 minutes. Anyway, he's filming this, so he's whispering how much he hates me. I regress. Yeah, when they do stupid stuff, that's not from me. That's not from me. That is from Eric. It's from Eric. But a little bit about my side of the family. My mom sent me to live with my grandparents when I was around Maggie's age. She was about 10, and she sent my sister above me to live with her dad's aunt and uncle, and I got sent to live with my dad's parents. No, we weren't bad kids. No, my mom had a ton of us on one income in a crappy neighborhood with really bad school districts. She was just doing what she thought she needed to do to provide a better life for us. And my grandparents, Jenny and I have different dads, by the way, my sister. My grandparents were pediatricians, incredibly intelligent people. My grandfather, before he became a pediatrician, flew B-25s in World War II. And not only did he become a pediatrician, he was also an immunologist that worked with other doctors, including Dr. Salk, on the polio vaccine. Brilliant people. But my Mimi, even though she was brilliant, was kind of like Bobby Boucher's mom. Everything was the devil to her. Everything. She would cook these elaborate dinners, and she would say, "Here, eat," and I would eat it. And then when I wouldn't ask for seconds, she would say, "You didn't like it. I slaved over this hot stove, and you don't want seconds." So I would eat the seconds, and then she would say, "Huh, you're going to get fat thighs and a big butt just like your mother. You know, gluttony is from the devil." Could not win with this woman. Could not win with this woman. I was probably in the 6th grade when I asked my dad for a gerbil. We lived in the mountains of western North Carolina in a county called Polk. If you don't know any better, it's Polk. And they don't have PetSmarts up there. At least they didn't when I was a kid. So we had to drive all the way to Spartanburg. My dad bought me a gerbil. And I had the cage and all the cool accessories. I had the wheel and the little ball that you put them in. I got out of the car. And my Mimi walks out and she goes, "You know, your father had a gerbil when he was little. Bit his finger clear to the bone. Your grandfather had to bribe one of his surgeon friends to surgically remove the gerbil from his index finger. That is not coming into my house." What you can do, you can put it in the rafters of the well house. So for you that don't know, a well house is this tiny little building that kind of looks like an outhouse that covers the entrance to a well. It has a door, little roof, and some rafters, normally where my grandmother would hang plants and things. Excuse my dog. And so anyway, I would play with them out on the patio. I'd put them back into the cage and I'd hook them on the rafters. One morning I went out to go check on them, feed them. Door was open. Ran inside, let the screen door slam behind me. I got my dad. I should mention that my dad lived with my grandparents and I. And I told him what had happened. And my Mimi walked out and she goes, "You know, you probably didn't latch the door good." I knew I did. I knew I did because every time I put the little thing up there, carabing from the rafters, I thought, I don't want him to fall to his death. I better close this good. Then she proceeded to say, "You know, a snake probably ate them. Snakes are from the devil." That was God's way of telling you didn't need it. I think the best thing my grandmother ever did was when I was about 16, she had no reason to fuss at me, so she created one. She created a problem. She plugged the hairdryer in and turned it on full blast. Put the phone down, Wayne. I'm hovering in the sky. She put the hairdryer on full blast. And she went and got my dad. "Scott, Johnny could have burnt the house down." My dad's like, "Okay, I'll handle it. I'll talk to her." So we're getting ready to go to school. By the way, my dad worked in my high school. That was fun. It was not fun. It was not fun. Popular kids would be really nice to me the semester they had my dad and then never speak to me again. Anyway, we're going out the door. Tell my Mimi goodbye. I love her. She doesn't say anything back. She just smirks at me like this. Get in the car. My dad says, "Hey, just so you know, Mimi said you left the hairdryer on." I'm like, "Dad, you know I didn't do that. I got out of the shower, dried my hair. As you were coming into the bathroom, you watched me roll it up and put it under the sink." And he goes, I know. You know, when Mimi doesn't have a reason to be mad at you, she will create reasons. I suggest you just stay away from her." Even at that age, I thought, maybe, just maybe Mimi is the devil. She's still evil. I still love her. I love her to death. She's still evil, though, at 93 years old. Did different ways. For instance, she has a bottle of Italian salad dressing that expired in 2014 that she puts out on the table every time she serves salad. It's like playing Russian roulette with guests that don't know not to eat from that salad dressing. It's just disgusting. And what's evil about it, because old people love expired stuff. No, what's evil about it is that she knows it's expired and continues to keep it in the fridge. Another evil thing she does is give me unsolicited medical advice. Doesn't sound inherently evil, right? No, but she gives me unsolicited medical advice not from her, but from Dr. Mansman. So just so you know, Dr. Mansman was one of my grandfather's colleagues. He was also an immunologist. And you can even still read some papers that my grandfather and Dr. Mansman co-wrote on the Journal of American Medicine websites from like the 70s. It's super cool. Anyway, I regress. So she'll call me and ask how the kids are doing. And I'm like, well, Wyatt got his wisdom teeth removed. Well, we all got the flu. You know, just life updates. Just life updates. And she'll wait a day or two and then she'll call me back and she'll say, I was talking to Dr. Mansman the other day and he said that Wyatt should brush his teeth at least 6 times after having his wisdom teeth removed. I was talking to Dr. Mansman the other day and he said you all got the flu because you don't sanitize your house properly. I was talking to Dr. Mansman the other day. He said you should lose some weight and your blood pressure wouldn't be so high. But what my Mimi does not know, what she doesn't know that I know is this. My grandfather passed away in the year 2000. The American Academy of Pediatrics published his obituary in the back of their magazine. They do that when esteemed members of the association die. A couple of years later, probably like 2002, they published Dr. Mansman's obituary in the back of the American Academy of Pediatrics magazine. I read it. I even remember saying, hey, Mimi, didn't Papa work with Dr. Mansman? And she was like, yeah, they were really good friends. Maybe 2 days ago, she called me. She said, Dr. Mansman called me just to make sure everybody's doing all right. He wanted to know how the kids were. All I could think of was that her Ouija board must have excellent Wi-Fi. And that is how I know that she's the devil.